And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
What's going on, Buccaneers Nation? Welcome to another high-stakes episode of RBLR Bucs. I'm Musab, one of your co-hosts. And today, we're rolling the dice on all things Tampa Bay football with a little Vegas twist in the mix, if you get what I'm saying. But first off, let's talk about that nail-biting NFC South matchup against the Panthers. Oh, my Lord. That wasn't pretty. But hey, win's a win, especially against an NFC South rival. And, the Bucs are now 2-0 after the bye week. And I've got a feeling we make it 3-0 after this weekend. Why is that, Musab? Well, because we're going against the Las Vegas Raiders. They're coming to our house, and we're ready to cash in big. All right, well, the playoff push is heating up. There's a lot to unpack, but before we roll into all that, we want to let you know that we want to hear from you, our loyal listeners. Whether you're new to the show or a returning fan, feel free to always drop your thoughts, comments on our posts, even your frustrations as well. Consider us your football therapist, folks. We got you covered. But enough about me. It's time to introduce the co-captain of this ship, my partner in crime, the man with the plan. He's got that Vegas swagger, but he's got that Tampa heart. He is Mr. Carter Brantley. What's going on, Carter? How are you?
Nothing much, man. Just chilling. Really excited because the Bucs are finally back home. I mean, they've been on the road and they haven't played at Raymond James in seeming like literally over a month. So I'm pretty excited to be able to go back to Raymond James and get to watch them. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and they get to play like you said, the Las Vegas Raiders, for better or for worse. So yeah, I mean, we'll get right into it. Yeah, I mean, they had that really close win this past weekend. I mean, my goodness, there was twists and turns and all these different little, little storylines, I guess you could call them. It was 26-23. It took an overtime period to win. But hey, a win's a win. It's like they say in baseball, like it's a line drive in the box score when a guy hits a blooper, and then it's all good. It's a win. It's not pretty, but that's how it be sometimes in the NFL. Those guys on the other side get paid too. But what were your thoughts on the game? Overall, just like any kind of off the cuff reactions on it, Musab?
I mean, it was just overall downright ugly on both ends. I mean, whether you're a Panthers fan or a Buccaneers fan, I feel like you didn't really enjoy that game. And I mean, as a Buccaneers fan, you really enjoyed it until the end when Anthony Nelson came through for us. But I just got to say, I don't know. It was kind of just a little bit kind of unexpected, especially to see how the Panthers took advantage of our banged up defense. But in the end, I mean, as you said, Carter, we were able to get the win, but it was scary because I feel like this could have been a whole different game had the Panthers not shot themselves in the leg so many times. And I mean, hey, we did the same thing too. So it was kind of like a textbook version of, the Battle of Turd Mountain, NFC South, Panthers versus Buccaneers. So, yeah, I guess I should have seen this coming.
Yeah, I mean, the Panthers are just they can be such a mess, but at the same time, they can also be, as we saw, they have some kind of fun parts. I mean, that Kansas City game the week before for Carolina, they were pretty close. I think it was the week before, but yeah. So I mean, they're kind of looking up. Bryce Young seems to be kind of the future. I know you mentioned it being really ugly on both sides, and the offense certainly was pretty ugly for the Bucs, but Bryce Young wasn't too bad. I mean, he was kind of fun. What were your thoughts on Bryce Young's performance, and what's your outlook for the Panthers kind of moving forward?
I have to say he's improved a lot, from before, and I feel like he's just one of those guys, one of those rookies, second year or whatever. He's any of these young guys who just gotta, they need a little bit of time to warm up. I feel like everyone, develops at a different stage. Some guys are just ready to be thrown into the fire, and some guys, they kind of need to sit back and, see how the NFL game works, compared to college. But I mean, overall, I thought, he was a lot more just looking better in every single way possible. I have to say, I was really impressed by that rushing touchdown. I feel like a lot of us weren't expecting that. I mean, it was a 3rd and 5. we were just about to get him, and then out of nowhere, he goes in for the rushing touchdown, which again is a huge momentum changer. And I have to say, I feel like, as he's picking it up, I mean, being the QB, you got to be leading this team, of course. And, as he's kind of showing out now compared to before, I feel like it's kind of hyping all the other guys. Things are looking better on both ends, the chemistry. But obviously, I'm not saying that, they're amazing and all that, but
Right.
it's definitely, I mean, they're definitely taking some big steps forward for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's the good thing. Like I think coming into this season, them having one win last year and then him getting benched, I think there was kind of a I don't want to say sky is falling. I mean, it was pretty close to that. It was kind of a worst case scenario because they had given up the 3 first-round picks for him. They spent a first overall pick for him, yada yada yada. So for them to kind of bounce back and for him to look like an NFL quarterback because to start the season, my goodness, he did not look like one. He was getting outplayed by Andy Dalton. So yeah, I'm with you. I think things are looking up. Like you said, there's still a lot to work on. They are by no means a perfect team, but I was impressed with the Panthers, specifically with Bryce Young. But on the counter of that, his sack avoidance was pretty impressive. But unfortunately, the flip side of that means the Bucs didn't get to him very much. What were your thoughts on that? Like, do you think maybe that has more to do with the Panthers' offensive line because they invested pretty heavily in it this offseason, and they're not a bad group. Like that's actually one of the strong suits of the Panthers offense and the team in general. Or do you maybe see this as a concern for the Bucs pass rush moving forward?
Our pass rush has kind of been a mystery mark for a while now. I mean, I have to give credit where it's due for the Panthers' offensive line, but I mean, yeah, they were kind of just embarrassing out there. All these kind of open holes, for Bryce Young or even the wide receivers. We just we just haven't been able to apply pressure, like we used to. I miss those old days, Carter. But hopefully, it's just that it just sucks, Carter, because we got a bunch of these young guys who are supposed to show us what they're capable of. It's not like we just got these random guys on our team and a couple of them are old heads or something. Hell, the guys who are more experienced, our old heads, are actually saving us from these losses, really. So, um, I mean, I got to see more aggression, more kind of I guess strategies or whatever on how to kind of attack these offensive lines because, I mean, to be struggling against the Panthers is definitely not ideal.
Yeah, I mean to put up those kind of numbers is kind of tough, like you said. Not super ideal to say the least. So yeah, I mean it's definitely a kind of a concern moving forward because the talent just isn't quite there. But that's how it be sometimes. That's that's the nature of football. You can't with a salary cap league, you can't have strength on strength on strength. Unfortunately, there aren't any teams that are built without a weakness, and unfortunately, the pass rush for the Bucs kind of a weakness. But we've been pretty negative so far in this episode, despite the fact that the Bucs won. So I want to shift it to more of a positive tone. There were a lot of really cool plays. There was the Rashad White run to set up the game-winning field goal. There was the game-winning field goal. There was also the game-tying field goal before the game before regulation ended from Chase McLaughlin because that was no ordinary game-tying kick. It was a 51-yarder, I believe. So that was really impressive.
Hmm.
Then, of course, the Anthony Nelson strip fumble of Chuba Hubbard. That's probably my play of the game. That was like just altering, like pretty much season saving. Honestly, it was kind of like the last year with the Jake Camarda fumbled punt, but then he manages to pick it up and still kick it away. Like I don't know if you remember that play last year, but that's
Yeah.
probably the Anthony Nelson one's probably my play of the game. But how about you, Musab? Do you have a different one?
Well, I gotta say, I'll probably just go with that. But I mean, if anything, I'll have to give it to Rashad White. I feel like that drive he had, to get us that game-winning field goal. I feel like that was really big, and I feel like for the most part, I was thinking, where's Bucky? Nothing against really White, but I was just thinking, well, where's Bucky when we need him at most? You know what I'm saying? So in the end, it all worked out. I mean, it was a really, really big play, super exciting. I mean, once that happened, I was like, all right, we got this now, So, um, but I mean, that Anthony Nelson, strip fumble was huge, huge, huge. Just who knows what would happen if he didn't do that. If Hubbard had just got tackled, who knows what would have happened? Maybe the Panthers would have gone down the field or something. So It's times like these, in the end that all these guys, they were able to come through in the end. And I want to give a shout out to also Baker Mayfield for being so clutch. I feel like no other quarterback other than I feel like maybe Tom Brady on the Buccaneers would be able to do what he did.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. It's definitely one of those things where he had a rough game for the most part throughout the first part of the game. Those two interceptions were rough, and then he comes out and he has an injured ankle and he has to go out of the game for a while. And then he manages to come back into the game and turn things around. And just a really, really impressive effort, like you said, just a really kind of a clutch performance there at the end. Because it was tough. Like it was not a great game for him moving up to that point, but he managed to collect himself, kind of put it all to the side and just do his thing, which was really, really impressive. So yeah, and the Rashad White thing, that was kind of tough because, like you said, like, where's Bucky? Like, Bucky had such a great game up to that point. But I think it had come out that he had a banged up hip or something. So that's why Rashad was in there at the end of the game. But yeah, Rashad did a great job. But obviously, it is a little bit weird. Like, hey, like Bucky's ran for almost, over, I think he ended up with over 150 yards rushing or something crazy like
Yep.
that. So yeah, it was a little concerning, not seeing them there at the end. But that's the nature of it. Sometimes the guys got to come out. But moving on to our next segment, the player of the game, because we want to focus on the win. It was a good week. So on the offensive side of the ball, our player of the game, Bucky Irving, he was just outstanding. I mean, like we mentioned, over just a ridiculous stat line for him running the football, just doing his thing, really letting the offensive line create some holes for him, and then him taking advantage and then creating even more after that too. Because he's been great even after contact. Like, he's one of the best running backs in football in regards to yards after contact per rush. So it's been really, really fun. And then who we got on the defensive side of the ball, Musab? Who's our player of the game for the defense?
Mr. Anthony Nelson. Who else? I mean, coming through for the game winning, fumble, forced fumble. I mean, I can't imagine what the game would be had he not done that. So, I mean, I also have to say, I mean, there wasn't really anything else, on our defensive side that really kind of stood out, at least for me. So I got to go with Anthony Nelson.
Yeah, Anthony Nelson. I mean, my goodness, like we said, probably the play of the game. Really pretty much saved the season. If the Bucs don't win this game, I mean, my goodness, like things do not look good for them moving forward. So yeah, that strip fumble on the rush from Chuba Hubbard, that was huge. Really, really fun to watch him. Do his thing, and I believe Anthony Nelson had a child this past week too. Like, I think he missed a practice because he had to go witness the birth of his child, and
I think I
so
heard
all in
that
the same
actually.
week.
Yeah.
Shout out Anthony Nelson. Like, he's just having himself a week. So that's pretty cool. But before we depart from this Panthers Bucs game, any parting thoughts or anything you maybe wanted to bring up about this game, or are we good to move on to the upcoming Raiders game?
I'll probably say the only thing that kind of is a little bit more concerning is to see how the Panthers, I mean, and the Bucks, but more the Panthers I saw was they weren't really doing anything, and to see a team kind of do ugly in the beginning and then change it up, in the second half is from a Panthers lens. I mean, obviously that's beautiful to see, and you're really kind of happy to see that, but it's just kind of irritating and annoying to see our Buccaneers let this happen. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we were just kind of letting or letting their momentum get to us as well. So I don't know what it was, but it just kind of obviously concerning for sure. I mean, you don't want to just only win by 3 against the Panthers. I was looking for something a little bit more, of course, but yeah, those are kind of my final thoughts. Is guys, we got to do better, and I'm hoping things turn around big time against the Raiders.
Yeah,
What
I
about you,
mean,
man?
yeah, I mean, given giving the Bucs, giving the Panthers 23 points and only scoring 26, definitely not a great look. So yeah, moving forward, it's kind of concerning, but pretty excited to see what they're able to do against the Raiders. And another thing that I'm pretty excited for, and that y'all should be excited for, if you're looking for Christmas presents, or maybe you're just looking for something to spruce up your wardrobe because it's a little chilly outside. I mean, yeah, see, Mr. Tariq's got the shirt going on.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, that's fantastic. Yeah, so we got some long sleeve stuff because for Florida it's kind of chilly out. So if you're looking for it, head to shop.rblrsports.com. We've got some really great gear there. We'll give you a promo code that's Cannons, CANNONS, and that'll give you 10% off your entire order. So head on over there. We've got some great gear for you. Anything Tampa Bay sports related, we've got it. All right, so as we've mentioned, they got the Las Vegas Raiders this week. They're an interesting team. I don't think they're a good one. Before we get too deep into it, do you have any initial thoughts on the Raiders? Maybe I don't know. Have you paid attention at all to their season and how it's been going? I haven't really been, so I wanted to hear your thoughts before we get into it.
I mean, yeah, from kind of the overall kind of bigger from the kind of bigger perspective. I mean, I just know that they're kind of in shambles right now, kind of unfortunately in a lot of ways. But what I do have to say is I did watch the highlights, the Raiders Chiefs game, and I have to say I'm pretty impressed with what they were able to do. I mean, they were pretty dominant for the most part, against the Chiefs. And I mean, they played a pretty darn good game. But yeah, I don't know. I have to say though, I mean, I'm not super worried, but the thing is, well, I take that back. I'm not worried about our offense and their defense. I'm more worried about their offense and our defense. And I'm more worried about just us kind of, slipping up here and there and making some really costly mistakes. But that's just kind of my overall feeling. But I'll let you say what you got to say as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, there's certainly areas of concern with the Raiders, especially on their offense, because like you mentioned, Aiden O'Connell, their quarterback, kind of had a nice game against Kansas City. I mean, it was a close loss. Like the Bucs are facing two straight teams that gave the defending Super Bowl champs a run for their money. So that's an area of note, and more specifically, there's Brock Bowers, their tight end. He's the rookie. Honestly, in my opinion, if Jaden Daniels doesn't win it, I'm fine with Brock Bowers winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year award at this point. He's having like a historic season for a rookie tight end. It's just been really impressive to watch, both for him and for my fantasy teams that own him. So it's been really fun to watch him go to work. But unfortunately for the Bucs, their linebackers have really struggled in coverage. Also, Antoine Winfield Jr. and whoever they have at safety this upcoming week, whether it's Mike Edwards, I know he's at least questionable with an injury, or if it's Ryan Neal, who they just signed to their practice squad in anticipation of Mike Edwards potentially being out. So Brock Bowers, big name to watch. But the good news is their defense has been really, really bad. Like bottom 10 in pass grades and pass coverage grades, just really, really bad. Last in pass coverage, actually, on PFF. So really, really bad. And they don't run the ball very well either. They don't have a really very good offensive line, and they don't have a great group of running backs either. They're the worst team in the NFL in EPA per rush, estimated points added. So, even though there is Brock Bowers and Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins on the defensive side of the ball for them are both really talented players, but so they defend the run really well, but there's a lot of areas to exploit. There's a reason they only have 2 wins, I believe. I mean, there's a reason they're as bad as they are. So there's certainly things that the Bucs can take advantage of. More specifically, we can get into the kind of the specifics of the matchups for the Bucs that might be advantageous for them. Are there any ones that pop out for you when you're looking at this game, Musab?
Yeah, the big one for me is probably just Bucs D line versus the Raiders offensive line. Raiders have actually allowed 41 sacks. I believe that's the 6th most in the NFL. And I mean,
Goodness.
and you can even see, I mean, I saw it against the Raiders and the Chiefs as well. I mean, this offensive line looks pretty shaky. And I feel like a lot of the times when I was watching the highlights, and I mean, I try to watch a little bit of the game here, but I got a little tired anyways. But
I feel you.
I saw Aiden O'Connell doing a lot of quick passes. And
Getting rid of it. Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't know what the Chiefs were thinking at that time, but the Raiders got away with it a lot. You know what I'm saying? It would be a quick pass, and then Brock Bowers or Myers would rack up some more yards or something. And my only kind of thing is, well, as much as I'm looking forward to that, applying as much as pressure and kind of shaking up Aiden O'Connell and the rest of their offensive line, it also makes me think, well, if they're just getting these quick passes out and we're not, ready for it, then I mean, especially those third down conversions, it's going to bite us in the butt for sure. But I'm really looking forward to seeing, what our pass rush does. Hopefully they pick it up again. I'm expecting, Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey, the rest of the guys to come through big time for us because we need a statement win. This past weekend was kind of supposed to be a little bit of that, I guess, especially just because it's the NFC South and especially because it's the Panthers. But clearly that didn't happen. But that's the big matchup I'm looking for. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great inclusion. That's a great shout out with Cansey and Vea in the middle, especially, and then you get Yaya Diaby off of the edge as well. If any of them have big games like either a sack or multiple sacks, then yeah, this game could get pretty ugly. It could be like the Giants game a couple weeks ago. But my big matchup is probably going to be Baker against this Raiders secondary, one of the worst coverage units in football. I know we've lamented about how bad the Bucs secondary has been this year. Rightfully so. They're pretty bad too, but the Raiders are on another level. The Raiders are filled with Josh Hayes and D Delaney's. They've got just those types of guys across the board, so to speak. So yeah, I'm looking for Baker to really have a big game this weekend. He's really, he's had a rough game against the Raiders. He had a great game against the Giants, but rough against the Panthers. I'm looking for a great game from Baker against the Raiders, and more specifically, Cade Otton. I think that Cade has had a really great year, but he's had a bit of a come down to earth, so to speak, the past few weeks. I'm looking for him to kind of bounce back to that mid-season production level of Cade Otton because he was racking up some real numbers in the middle of the season for sure. So, yeah, I'm kind of impressed with that. And one final note before we move on to our next segment, the Raiders are also bottom 10 in tackling grades. So I'm really interested to see how Bucky can do his thing because he's able to force so many broken tackles. He's just as shifty as they come in the NFL for sure. So, yeah, that's kind of a big deal as
On the
well.
stat sheet, the Raiders, I mean, are really bad. I mean, I
Yeah.
was just kind of
Yeah.
looking at it real quick. I mean, they rank 20 something in almost every single category, and all those 20 somethings are like 28, 27th. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's 28th and scoring defense, or 27th, and even in scoring offense. It's bad. You know what I'm saying? So my only thing is, yeah, we just got to make sure that they don't, get these quick passes out. Kind of like a similar situation with the Giants. Honestly, I kind of see this like, I don't know if I want to call Aiden O'Connell Daniel Jones or Daniel Jones Aiden O'Connell, but it's kind of the same thing where I'm thinking, all eyes are on Malik Neighbors, and I feel like this time it's going to be all eyes on Brock Bowers. Giants got Dexter Lawrence, Raiders got Max Crosby. So,
Yeah. I mean, they are kind of interestingly
I guess
similar.
the Raiders are the Giants of the West.
Right. I mean, they both have equally awful
They
records.
both suck. Yeah.
They both stink. Neither of them have a franchise quarterback moving forward. They both have like one elite target and then like kind of nothing after that. They've got a really good defensive line. Like Christian Wilkins is more like Dexter Lawrence. And then I'd say Brian Burns is sort of their Max Crosby. So yeah, across the board, these are very similar teams. Hopefully they'll get a similar result. That would be great because my
that's
goodness,
what I was
Giants,
about to say. Hopefully so.
exactly, that Giants game was a lot of fun to watch from just like watching it from someone who was trying to see the Bucs win. And I was trying to tune away at halftime because, excuse me, quite frankly, there were other more entertaining games going on than the Bucs and the Giants. So I'd love for that to be the case again this week. Just have an easy game, easy press conference after, like nothing too hot or anything. Just like everyone's kind of chillaxing, like, hey, they just beat the crap out of the Raiders. Like, let's just chill out. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to for sure. But I know Mr. Blaine isn't here, and he has his own little segment that he wants to do next week. But I figured we'd do a little preview of it and get our picks in. So I want to talk about our 3 biggest surprises so far this week, and he's going to have some negative stuff about it next week. So we'll save the negative stuff for him. But I wanted to focus on the positive guys. The guys who have had sort of surges or surprisingly good seasons. So my 3 guys were Bucky, K. Dotton, and Zion McCollum. All 3 of those guys have played really above their pay grade, just really exceeded even the mildest or the wildest of expectations. So who are your 3 guys? Do you have anyone different for the biggest surprises this year so far for the Bucs?
No. I agree with you with the offense for sure. Bucky and K. Dotton. Zion McCollum, I'm gonna lean Zion, sprinkle a little bit of Kalijah Kancey as well, just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I have to say, no guy has really, really stood out. This is not like Antoine Winfield last year where he's like, oh wow, okay, like he's our Lord and Savior on defense. You know what I'm saying? But I have to say, with all of our DB issues and everything we've dealt with in the past couple of years, Zion McCollum has definitely shown big signs of improvement. He's definitely stepped up for sure. And then, Bucky and Cade. Yeah, Cade, again, same thing with Zion, stepped up big time. He's taken some real hard hits out there, so I want to give him a shout out for that as well. And then Bucky Irving, I don't even know what to say. This guy is one of the shiftiest, quickest guys I've ever seen. I still remember that day where we got him, and I was like, oh, we need a power back like Braylon Allen from the Jets. But you know what? I take that back. I am so happy Bucky Irving's with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, no doubt about it. I think we were both kind of in unison in saying that, like, oh man, the Bucs kind of screwed the pooch on this one, and now it's like, oh yeah, like there's a reason we're doing this podcast and Jason Light has his job. Like there's a reason there are scouts out there doing their thing, and they clearly found someone that they liked, and my goodness, they really hit it out of the park with that Bucky pick. To get that kind of production out of a 5th round pick is just mind-boggling. Even at the running back position, I know that running back is sort of like, oh, you can get a good running back anywhere. Like, sure, but not necessarily this level. So it's been really impressive to watch him go to work. So yeah, the Kalijah Kancey one, really good inclusion for sure. He's finally kind of living up to the 1st round pick hype, sort of, so to speak. He kind of dealt with some injuries last season and is part of this year as well. So it's been really impressive to watch him go to work and finally live up to the potential that I think everyone kind of knows that he has. But we've got a couple of more segments here before we finish up. We've got an over/under. It's my turn this week, so I'll hit us with one, or I'll hit us with a couple. Excuse me. So the first one that I've got is Baker Mayfield passing yards over/under, and these are mine. I'm not going off of Vegas odds just because we try to keep things interesting and unique here at RBLR. We want to keep things fresh and funky. So I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield's passing yards. And do you think he goes over or under 250 passing yards against the Raiders?
Oh, that's good. I'm going to go. Damn, because I wouldn't be surprised if our run game just takes off. You know what I'm saying?
For sure, they've been really good.
I'm going to go. I'm going to go under. I'm going to go under 250.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he might get close, but I also have a feeling that at that point, we're also just going to be depending on our run game. So yeah. What about you? What do you think?
I'm going to go over on this. I think he has a big day. Like maybe not 300 yards, but I think he creeps into the 270, 275 territory. Just because the Raiders are they're just really bad defensively, defending the pass. I know Max Crosby, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL for sure, and Christian Wilkins can do his thing up the middle in applying pressure. But the Bucs have a really good pass blocking unit. I mean, they've been outstanding this year. So if anyone can kind of hold up against those 2 juggernauts, I think it's the Bucs. And then you get Mike Evans back. I know he had an okay week last week against the Panthers, and an okay week against the Giants. I think that he's going to get quite a few targets. He might rack up over 100 yards receiving this week. So I'm pretty excited to see what Baker can do against this Raiders offense. All right, so the next over/under I've got. I'm going to go with sack totals, and I'm going to go with the Bucs. So, you mentioned that the Raiders give up an absurd amount of sacks. So I'm going to set the line at 2.5. I know that that's kind of low, but the Bucs aren't exact. They don't have they don't have Von Miller coming off the edge. They've got Yaya Diaby, who's pretty good, but I'm just we got to be realistic here. So 2.5. What do you think? Over or under 2.5 sacks for the Bucs this week?
Oh, this one's good as well. My mind's telling me, under, but my heart's telling me over. So I'm gonna go over. I think we'll get 3.
Yeah, I think 3 is a very reasonable number, but I also think 2 is as well. That's kind of why I
Yeah.
said it where I did, because I figured this is a tough one. I'm going to go under. I think that they get 2. If they get over 2, or if they get like 3 or more, then like I said, they're going to run away with this. So I think that it's a little bit closer than the Giants game, but I don't think it's going to go into overtime or anything. And we'll get into predictions in our next segment. But yeah, I'm going to go under. I think they hit 1 or 2 sacks. But I think they get pressure on O'Connell. I just think that maybe he gets rid of it a little quicker, because the Raiders know, like, it's not like they're coming into this weekend thinking, oh, we've got, the Lions offensive line. We're the best. We have the best offensive line in football. There's a reason why he gets rid of the football so quickly, So I think that they go under, but not by a whole lot. I don't think they get shut out or anything in the sack category. So to finish it out, before we sign off, before we let y'all go, I want to get your predictions in, Mr. Tariq. Who you got winning and by what score?
Yeah, I'm going 34-16. Buccaneers win. I just think that we'll be able to dominate on both sides of the ball. My big thing is I think we're going to be able to lock down their offense big time. I think we're just going to be watching out for those quick passes, and I mean, we're just going to have to keep our eyes out on Brock Bowers as well. And then I think our offensive line should be doing a good job again against Matt Crosby. Hell, even if we have to double team him, or and do some kind of maybe some more max protection, using some kind of max protection schemes, to kind of allow Baker Mayfield again and get him a little bit more time to throw the ball. So for that reason, I think we're going to have a pretty dominant game, 34-16.
Yeah, 34-16. That is domination for sure. I'm sold that they win by 2 possessions. I'm going 31-21 Bucs. Not by as much, but I think they have a pretty convincing win. The Raiders aren't, they've got 2 wins for a reason. It's kind of it's kind of rude to say, but the Raiders just aren't a very good football team right now, and the Bucs, as much as they've struggled at points this year, they struggled against the Ravens and Kansas City and the Denver Broncos, but they've struggled against good teams, but they've taken advantage of their matchups that they should have. They've won, for the most part. They've won the games that they need to win, that they should win. So I have no doubt that they'll be able to do it again this week. And if they're not, then y'all will get to see Zach Blaine, go ballistic next week. I'm sure he'll have a lot to say if the Bucs win. He had a lot to say about this victory, or if the Bucs lose, he had a lot to say about this victory. So I'm sure that, he'll come back next week with a vengeance. But hopefully y'all don't have to see angry Zach. You'll get to see, just kind of content Zach, and we'll be talking about a Bucs victory. But either way, we'll be here next week. And we really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you liked what you heard, if you want to stay updated, and if you want to see more of this annoying little kitten Milkshake who keeps bothering me while I'm trying to record this episode, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. It's a way to support the pod. You can follow us at Twitter at RBLR Sports or at RBLR Bucs. We're also on Blue Sky, RBLRBucs.RBLRsports.com. Look us up there as well. I know that's kind of the new hot thing. So definitely check us out there. But we really appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. And thank you. Much love to my co-host, Mr. Musab Tariq. But we'll see y'all next week. And until then, go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.